Yeah, okay. What I can do is I can give you an update on the year-end report for as of April 30th, 2019. The current balance in the income tax account is $1,628,734.73. Currently, as of April 30th, city staff has processed approximately 4,000 returns. Of those 4,000 returns, about 800 of those 4,000 are going to be processed for a refund. So far, we've got 392 that have been done, and those are 34 residents, 358 non-residents that have amounted to about $25,585 for refunds to residents and or non-residents that are due to them by June the 16th. Currently, as of from January 1 to April 30th, we have collected an additional $672,282.55 in withholdings. So in addition to, we're still collecting withholdings as we did last year, and for the first third of the year, we have collected approximately about $672,000. As we move forward, we're continuing to get more returns because though they were due by April 30th, there is no penalty for late submittal this year, and this is the only year that happens. So people are continuing to send returns in, and they're being processed as they come in. Just anything else? We continue to work with the city of Grand Rapids, who sends, there's a gentleman that comes down every Friday to help process some of the returns, as well as city staff is doing their part with it. That's probably the extent of the update for up through April 30th, unless there's any questions. Yes, ma'am.
When is the work on our streets and other things, when is that supposed to start taking place?
So that information has been put out on the website as to what the proposal was that was presented here. That has to go to the commission, and then the commission has to make a decision as to what they want to do. So hopefully it could begin by the end of the year, but the problem we're going to run into is that if the city commission doesn't say okay and bless the plan as it sits, we'll miss this year because the plants will close, asphalt plants will close, and so it won't probably start until 2020. So the major stuff won't start until then. But in the interim, there are some short-term stuff that's going to be done that is not what we talked about, like I said, when Adam Marsh made their presentation.
Well, actually, what you are saying that none of the money will be touched until
No, ma'am.
all of this has taken place?
No, that's exactly correct.
That's exactly what I'm looking for, is not the money to be touched, because
No.
then there's some other areas that I have been concerned about, and I'd rather for our whole body to be here in order to hear some of the concerns that I have prior to us even thinking of starting on the streets or whatever.
Okay. Like I said, I don't know where they are, but okay, I understand.
But maybe they will appear eventually.
Okay.
There's another meeting going on across the street.
Yeah, there is a separate meeting today as well, because
What is it
the
regarding?
DDA, the Brownfield Planning Commission is going on right across the street.
Well, why would the Brownfield be given a meeting, and our meetings is on Thursday, the fourth Thursday?
It wasn't the Brownfield specifically. It's the Brownfield. It's the Downtown Development Authority. It's it's Cornerstone. It's Planning Commission. It's a group of people that are having a meeting. Like I said, right now. It started at 5:30.
Well, what is this in regard to?
About redevelopment and development in the city. So you've got two meetings going on concurrently.
So it must have been quite important for them to miss this meeting to be over there.
Again, I believe that the participants in this for the income tax had double duty today. So they went across the street. I don't know that to be true because I haven't been over there.
No, but they should have canceled one and just mentioned that they had a priority of one or the other.
Understood.
You know, if you're,
Yes, unless there's some more questions.
Got a question about the lawsuit that was filed by Harbor Shores residents.
Mm-hmm.
Is that money still in a separate bank account, or is that now, I know the judge threw that out,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew they were trying to appeal or go to the,
It is going to go to appeal. They are appealing the decision.
so we still cannot touch that money until it's strictly done with the whole court?
No.
escrow?
So that court case is in regards to that development. I think it's like 28 people said that the tax was unfair because they didn't get an opportunity to vote on it.
Right.
It went to the judge here locally. The judge then basically ruled and said, nope, it's fine. They are now taking it up to the state level to appeal, State Court of Appeals, to appeal that decision. So what it does is it doesn't do anything for us to do with the money that we have currently. What it does is the money that they would have to submit to the income tax.
So, right, they're still paying the city income tax and it's still going in an escrow account, correct?
They have not paid, I don't believe, and I'd have to check that, but the money, they're saying that they are not going to pay until they run the course of all the.
I attended that court hearing with, I believe it was Judge Wiley.
Yeah.
I attended and I thought he advised that the money be escrow account until the end of the
But
court.
the escrow account is not in possession of the city. That's what I'm saying. It's not our account. So if it is, it would be with their attorney and it would be a thing that they would have in there. I've not seen that account. I don't have access to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that money's not even included with
It's not. If it's an escrow, if they put it in escrow, it's an account that they've set up, that their attorney and them are contributing to, that if this is resolved, would then come to the city.
So would that also, and you probably can't answer it here, would that also affect the 523 agreement with them? Because if I'm correct.
425.
425, yes. If I'm correct, Harbor Shores Hotel is part of that agreement.
There-
Would that,
Correct. There are 425 agreements. There are a couple of 425 agreements that are involved in the Harbor Shores development. The other ones have not sued us. It's just that entity, that group of residential people that are suing us. So the others are doing what they're supposed to. It's just that group. The Fairways, I believe it's the Fairways is the name.
yeah, I don't think it was real, you know, it's all close together. Thank
Yeah.
you, that's all I
Okay. Any other questions? No.
Can I ask another question since it's just me?
Go ahead. Yeah.
In the first year assessing the city income tax, how would you say it's been for Benton Harbor? Has it exceeded expectations with projected numbers, or?
It's pretty much hit the mark as it relates to what was projected, about $1.5 to $2 million. Just based on what we have recorded. But what that doesn't take into account is the compliance aspect of it, where some people have not submitted income tax. So what we have to do going forward is get income tax records from the state to know who's submitted, and then match up to see who has submitted and who didn't. Then we will start the enforcement of it, sending them letters and letting them know you were subject to the city income tax, you must comply. And then that starts that. So the totality of it, we won't know until that portion is done.
So have you guys developed a estimation of how much you're expecting next year?
We will after that, because like I said, we don't know who's filed. People file state taxes that haven't filed city income tax. So we don't know what number is still out there that has not submitted their income tax to the city that we can say is revenue for the income tax. So once that does come to fruition, we'll know and we can estimate a little bit better what the number is. Right now we had conservative of about 1.2 because we didn't want to overestimate it and then fall short. So at 1.2, we were at about 1.5-ish. So we're good so far. So going forward, we'll keep a modest estimate so that we don't go over it and then come short. That's what we don't want to do.
Has any other cities, surrounding cities, reached out to Benton Harbor regarding the city income tax as looking at possibly doing it, or?
We've not had any comment. Our conversations have mostly been with other entities that already have one, and asking how it's going and if they can be of assistance. The MITA group, which is the Michigan Income Tax Association, has been very, very helpful in helping us get our feet up under us and do the things necessary to get the income tax and make sure that it's administered correctly. But like I said, we have not had any conversations, to my knowledge, related to others that are looking to do an income tax.
This is just something I would suggest next year. Work with some of the individuals. I know a question, I think with Inkster or another city, was about doing an online city income tax payment.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something Benton Harbor's looking at?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're looking going forward into next year of making it as easy as possible to do electronic filings for withholdings as well as electronic returns. When talking with the city of Grand Rapids, like I said, who has helped us, Jennifer has helped us tremendously. One of the things that we need to do is get with the tax software preparers so that when you do your taxes, it automatically says you have a city income tax. So that was the one thing that we did. So they have to take about a year to develop that information. So that's what we're looking for next year. So we don't have to have the people come in, do a hard paper copy. All that stuff will be then sent to us as a electronic file, and then we'll have the actual document that we need. Because right now everybody has to come in and submit that to the city.
All right, thank you. That's
To your question, Mr. Bowens, I did speak with Richard Marsh, in fact, at the governor's residence. He is the city manager for eCourse, which is very similar to Benton Harbor, and at one point was under the emergency management. He was just totally baffled on one hand, surprised on the other hand, and excited and happy on the other, because he did say that was one of the major issues when he was here as the city manager was revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And cash flow, et cetera, et cetera. So he wanted to know how, when, what, how, where, everything, because he was saying that eCourse, they need to do something identical. He wanted to know if we hired a firm, what was the cost, which of course we did none of that. It was just, collective effort by the community, and of course it passed. So anyhow, that's to answer your question.
I have a question. For this board, do they have the statement, statements of the cash flow that's in already? Do they have some statements that we can follow more closely the dollars?
The general bank statements can be provided, but as far as the specifics of who's been contributing and what is going on, that we cannot.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but could we at least have the bank?
Yeah, the bank statements can be provided, as far as what the statement says at the end of the month. Yeah.
So, Mr. Manager, at one point there was a grid, if I'm not a grid, but like a table that was put out that showed month by month what was collected.
Okay,
I'll send it to you, but
Okay.
it was actually sent to us, where we could see what was collected
Here-
January, February, March, April, and then the final tally.
here's what's going on also with the city. We've got it's a software package called ClearGov. And what ClearGov does is it's for the transparency part of the of government. So what will end up happening is projects, spending, all that will be put out on the web so that any resident, any stakeholder, any business owner can go and see exactly what we do month to month, day to day, projects that are coming, progress that's happening. So that's something that's coming for the new fiscal year. We're in the development stage right now, getting all that in, so we get the budget stuff in, and you can just track. We started out with X amount of dollars, here's where the budget stands at each month, and again, it would be to what you're talking about. So we're developing that to go forward, so that it will not only be just for the income tax, but government as well, the entirety of city government.
Awesome.
Well, one of the things that my asking, since there are few more persons that's on the board here, one of my concerns was I had asked, when would the construction of the streets and everything begin? So I was under the impression that it was supposed to have started this year.
That's our hope. You know, that was why Member Kennard was so critical that we give the council an imperfect recommendation. So now,
Meaning imperfect, in what respect do you mean?
I'm not,
Imperfect recommendation, what do you mean when you made that statement?
well, an imperfect plan where, so just for an example, by the time healthcare got to President Obama, he said he could barely recognize it from what he initially proposed. All of the different changes from the House to the Senate. So he said, you know, he was signing an imperfect bill into place, meaning that it was not perfect. And that, you know, over time it can be tweaked, changed, and eventually perfected. Now, if we were all perfect sitting up here, then we could present a perfect plan, but we're not.
But this is all together on a different level. This is not a healthcare, and this is a much smaller scale. This is a small city. It seems like things that we do should work a lot smoother if we put places and follow the plan from the beginning to perfect it. But all over the place now. We had a finance director that had some concerns. That is, we need to find out what was his concerns concerning him, his overview or keeping an overview of everything that comes in. Being a financial director, that's what you do. If he's directing and keeping an eye on the finances, that was what was planned from the beginning. So what is the changes? These things we need to know before the problem come up and they said, well, we should have addressed this. This is what I'm concerned about.
Well, the plan the recommendation has nothing to do with the former finance director.
No, but he does take care of the finance. That's still talking
The
about
finance director, as the manager stated, is giving reports.
That's right, but
That's it.
his concerns though, concerning finance or whatever, he's over the finance. We wanna know what was his concerns before we spend anything.
He's over the finance, but the finance director is not over the income tax. you have to hire an income tax administrator like the city of Grand Rapids. The city of Grand Rapids, they have a finance director, but they also have an income tax administrator that's a completely separate department.
Oh.
Where the finance director, city manager, city commission, they're giving reports.
Okay.
But the finance director, it's a segregation between the general fund and the income tax fund.
But all of it is concerning the city. The
It's all
income tax
concerning the city.
and the other. So why should he not have the knowledge and understanding about what is taken in, still being in the financial end of it?
He is given that information. He gave his body a report.
What was his concerns though?
His concerns, as stated in the letter that was given, was how it was being administrated. But his concerns was that he was not given a greater role, but he was ignorant to the fact that finance director had never been a finance director anywhere. When he was at Highland Park, he was not the finance director. This was his first job as a finance director. And he told me personally and professionally that he wanted Plant Moran to remain on contract and remain with the city because there were yet things about that position that he needed to be trained on.
But there was concerns of previous finance directors also that it came forth and had concerns.
This is not a human resource.
I know it's not a human
So I
resource, but when
can't
it
address, I can't address those issues at the income tax. This is a reporting to the community and the residents as it relates to the money that has been taken in and the 3-year plan as it relates to sidewalks and alleys that we need to be moving forward on to submit to the city council. But going up, digging into the human resource file of 2 different, one finance director is from about 2 years ago. To go back into that, we can't.
Well, I don't want to be later, Johnny come later, something that I should have paid attention to and I don't.
Well, I think you
I'm
should
put
go.
here
Yeah, I think you
for
should
a
go to
reason
the
of asking
personnel
questions
finance
and-
committee and ask those questions.
Well,
Not this committee. This is the wrong committee.
Well, I figured that you being the mayor, I should be able to get a clear answer because you should be clear on it.
I am clear on it. Crystal clear.
I'll leave it there right now.
Thank you. So, 3-year plan for sidewalks and alleys. Mr. Manager, did you address that?
I didn't. We just did the update on the year-end report.
Okay.
And the 3-year plan because I don't think that has been presented to this.
This has not.
Okay. There was a study done by the city engineer on the sidewalks that could be looked at. And I don't think there's one that exists for the alleys though. There was no assessment for them. So what we need to do going forward is look at doing that to incorporate it so that we can have that plan as we move forward.
But there has been one on sidewalks.
Yes, there has been one on sidewalks. They know what the composition of the alleys are.
Okay.
But as far as a condition and an assessment, that has not happened.
Okay.
Yes, that has not happened.
What was that not final number, but the number as of this month
For
collection?
the total number for dollars in the income tax account is $1,628,734.73.
1,600,000.
$28,734.73. So the other thing, Mayor, so far for withholdings, which we started over January, we've got $282.55 have been collected for withholdings thus far between January and April. So that's a part of that overall total.
672.
672,282.55.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Member Kennard?
I'd like to ask, where is the money coming from that doing the repair on the sidewalks now?
That's from the CDBG funding that was left over, for lack of a better description, from the emergency managers that had not been spent. What's that total, Mr. Manager?
For which
For
was
sidewalks, that was
$125,000.
$125,000.
Yes, sir.
So that was approved by HUD.
In revamped annual action plans that needed to be done as we had a timeliness finding from last year, because we cannot have more than 1.5 times what the number we get allocated. And so we did, and so HUD asked us to put together a plan that then would address how we were gonna spend it, gave us a time frame of May 2nd, which we have met. So that timeliness for that $1.4 million, I believe it was, has been met to reduce it down to less than 1.5 times.
Who made the decisions of which sidewalks got done?
That was determined by an assessment that was done by Marsh on the ones that were the worst ones that we needed to address.
So the
For
one that
88.
I had mentioned, excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
The one that is over by the children's garden there.
Mhm.
That one has got such a kick up, and I've been often afraid that someone would, hit that. If you went and just took a look at the severity of it,
Mhm.
you would see that it is a real problem.
And
And you said that you had put something and marked that as one of the things that they would address this year?
what the tree we
The
talked
tree.
about, the tree level.
Because it's got the sidewalk up so high.
So here's what we had to do, Ms. Kennard, because of the time deadlines that we had to get that done. So a lot of the ones that have trees that are there would take a longer time, because we would have to get the tree out, get that stuff. So we did something that we could do. There's a lot more work that needs to be done. Way more work that needs to be done. But we were constrained by a time schedule that we had to get done. So we got the ones that we could get done that didn't have a lot of extra work that needed to be done in them. For example, taking down a tree, clearing the root out from there, something of that nature. That's what we did and addressed that. So it's a perpetual
Right.
thing that we're gonna do. And the thing about it is,
But
again,
when it was a great safety issue.
Member Kennard, please let him finish.
the thing about it is, again, there is need all over, and we're gonna have to eat it one bite at a time. You're right. So the next round that we start looking at, as we start talking about monies to be spent from the income tax on sidewalks, could include that, because we're not restrained or constrained by deadlines that are HUD imposed. It gives us a little bit more flexibility. So when we do make the presentation of the sidewalk plan, of course we can address that, because we don't have to worry about, again, being under the guidelines of HUD. We have the authority to make the decision at the local level that we didn't have.
So, thank you, Member Kennard, Mr. Manager. I do want to keep this focus on city income tax dollars. Any questions or comments as it relates to the sidewalks that were done by CDBG dollars, please allow those to be done during the Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting. Member Tynes.
Yes, City Manager, okay, the 3-year plan for the sidewalks and alleys, and that's separate from the plan. What is the years in terms of working on the streets? How many, that's just like a 10-year plan or an objective for a set time that will accomplish this amount of repair? The second question was, in the sidewalks, is there any consideration where some of the residents, in terms of places where there's no way to walk, but creating sidewalks to keep people from walking in the streets, especially in the wintertime?
Okay. The first part of your question regarding the 3-year plan. The 3-year plan initially that was presented by Alvin Marsh for the streets was 19, 20, 21. The 3-year plan for sidewalks will probably go concurrent with that. If not, it'll just start 20, 21, 22. To get and address everything that we've got is going to take probably 30 years, give or take. If there's no extra infusion of dollars, it will take a significant amount of time to turn that curve where we're addressing everything. What the plan attenuated to was asset management that not only focused on making sure that what we have that's okay stays that way a little longer. That which was in bad shape, we saved for later, but we saved the majority of the roads that we had that were in good shape. So we get more longevity out of it. Because if you start looking at the dollars as was presented, it's about $200,000 to do a lane mile of an asphalt repair, and about $750,000 to do a lane mile of concrete. If you do that in 1 year, you've only done 1 mile. So we're trying to get the best bang for the buck across the whole spectrum of all the streets that need to be done.
Yeah, the other part of the question was, is in that plan an idea to put sidewalks where there are none? Again, that's all subjective. That could be a recommendation from this committee to go and install sidewalks, just repair what we've got. That's going to be the will of the commission and the committee's recommendation. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to encourage for you to talk with residents, to talk with their commissioners about when is this plan going to be approved so work can get started. Because that's where it's at now. This body did its work, it's recommended to the council, now it needs to hit a committee so we can start the vetting process. But again, talk with your ward commissioner and large commissioners about, timeline. The longer it takes to deliberate, debate, hopefully not filibuster, the longer it's going to take to get the work done. Member Allen?
May I ask though, is it this committee that needs to put the fire under their butts, or where do we get the ball actually moving down the court?
Well, with this body basically did its part.
Okay.
And that's why, I said imperfect, maybe not the right word, but we needed to recommend something because we need to do something. We can't just, stall a ball and run the clock out. We need to get projects shoveled in the ground, cement thrown, and we need to start fixing these roads.
Exactly.
So if you can speak with a commissioner, you have a relationship, but ultimately, we got to get out in the community and we got to, get some, I won't say pressure, but.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
one of the things that I'm going to recommend to the commission is that we have an extra Wednesday here, and I'm not advocating for extra meetings, but this is of importance. As we talk about the budget, I'm going to ask that be put on there for consideration.
Absolutely.
So that we can start this ball rolling. Because if not, we'll like you said, we'll just stall and literally be stuck in the mud trying to get it off the ground.
Exactly. With more questions to be raised.
Yep.
And no answers for the
Exactly.
question.
Yep.
Member Meeks?
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I don't think we got one kind of pattern that we gotta follow. this is something new, it's something we can do, something our way, something different. So I kind of see we can't get a benefit to the city and to the residents. We got a chance now to keep the residents to do these drains, to clean their own drains and get some money to their pocket. It's gonna have to be spent one way or another. It's gonna have to be spent with a contractor that's gonna take the money and go somewhere else, or it can be done with the city residents can take the money and spend it in their own city. So I'm kind of thinking it's not costing as much to have somebody else do it.
To
It
do
might
what?
initially to do the storm drain, to clean the gutters.
We're
and
not
stuff.
talking about storm drains.
No, that has something to do with roads.
But
I'm
that's,
talking about maintenance, asset management.
right, but that's a separate conversation
Well-
from this particular committee.
Well, can we spend that income tax money on the roads for maintenance?
Not for storm drains, no, sir.
Well, that has something to do with roads. The roads deteriorates when the storm drains don't work. We got fall rain and we got spring rain. And they both have a lot of water, and they gotta have somewhere to go. If they don't get off the road, and then the road deteriorate. So I don't know why they don't have anything to do with roads.
Well, I didn't say it doesn't have some type of relation, you know, but in terms of allocation, it's not, I would encourage you to get the resolution that was passed by the council as it relates to how this money can be allocated. We have to be very, very, very strict into that resolution.
Well,
Once we start getting creative and doing other things, then that's when there's a problem.
well, if I may say so, I mean, at that point, I wanna cut you off, Mr. Mayor. If I could say so, maybe it's just my opinion. My opinion is I've been in this 40 years and I've done highway work, road work. And I know about that. And also, I'm also with the counties doing that. It's called asset management. That come from Evermarsh.
Right.
That's part of asset management.
And your opinion is very valuable, and that's, I'm sure
Well-
that the manager is taking a note, and maybe monies from the general fund or Act 51
Act 51.
can be used in conjunction with
Correct.
the income. That was one of the reasons, Member Meeks, the income tax was presented, was because now we can use monies that may have been used in that area on things like drains. And we can use money from the income tax to address, so it just frees up and allows for us to do more with the little that we have. But I know the manager who's right here, you know, can definitely agree and speak to it.
We have so just as an example, Mr. Meeks, we're looking at doing, like we did with the farmer's market, we're looking at every dollar we can get, be it a grant dollar, be it a loan dollar, be it income tax money, be it Act 51 monies, to help offset and not have to try to go after monies that are you know, from residents, to have a special assessment for things like that. So any dollar that we can get, again, when we start talking about storm drain and work there, that's what we're going to do. We're going to use monies that are allocated, that have been allocated for other things now, that the income tax will take care of, like road maintenance, doing crack sealing, doing chip seals and stuff like that we've been having to set aside monies for, now can be reallocated and go as storm drain cleaning, investigation, and preventative maintenance. Because couple of problems that we have is we have some large storm drain issues right now that we have to have addressed, and it's not a small dollar ticket. I mean, we've got an issue over on Stevens Street that comes out of the interceptor. That's a major problem that we got. So again, we're just trying to figure out, we're trying to prioritize, trying to put money at it. We're trying to make every allocation that we can to do all the stuff we can all at one time. Because it doesn't make sense to do, for example, a road over bad infrastructure, then come and tear it up, and then have to go back again. So now you fix the same road twice. So coordinated efforts go into the asset management as you spoke about to make sure that we get that best bang for our buck. So we're not doing redundant work 3 and 4 times
But
in the
what,
same
what
area.
I'm saying, Mr. Manager, what I'm saying is, we can think out of the box. What I'm saying, so now, we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, maybe, if that's what I'm saying. We can put our people and our citizens to work, to do their city, and rather than take this money and say, okay, then now we got a contractor, we're gonna do that. You know what I'm saying? So my thing is keeping the money here. Basically, I'm not talking training now. I'm not talking training, but, and I don't know, maybe you don't have the equipment, but I know that sewer machine you probably paid $450 for, you can get online, a used one from another city for $50,000. I know you can do that. So, but they can be used, like I say, that money can be used to acquire the equipment that you need to do your
We
road.
can't do that.
Well, you can divert to Act 51 money for it then.
Right, and that's
You know
what,
I'm saying?
that's
So
what
now, I'm just
we're-
saying, now you got a replacement for the Act 51 money.
Mhm.
Yes.
So I'm just saying, if we can't do that, there's other ways. So I'm saying,
Right.
we don't have to do things like everybody else do. We can think out of the box. Let's talk about thinking out of the box. Now, you're solving a couple things.
Absolutely.
One thing.
I appreciate
Okay,
it.
well, I don't
and
know
I
if you,
appreciate.
I know I have a hard time people understanding me, but
No,
I'm trying to, when I say I'm breaking it down,
You
but I'm
directed
just
it.
trying to tell it the best way I can.
right to the
Okay.
face of the chair.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, Mayor, for talking at you.
That's all right.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Well, I'm sorry, but I just have my way of getting across, but I
Your,
just
your
want,
point is
my
well
thing is,
taken.
thanks for your,
It's
Okay.
well taken,
All right.
and that's one of the reasons why he was appointed to this board, was to
Okay.
bring that out of the box thinking and that experience, which is, you know, you said 40 years, I'm 44.
well,
So you was doing this when I was running around in diapers, so I do respect.
I remember you was in grade school.
I
Now,
do
how about
respect
that?
your
Okay,
opinion.
I'll tell you that, but my memory goes back.
Thank you.
Okay.
Member Kennard?
One of the other things I think that we should look at as we're doing these repairs, when these utility companies come in and tear up our streets, that they have something in place that they repair those streets back to their regular conditions. Because if not, we're defeating our purpose, because they go in and then they throw a lot of dirt in there, and we got 12 streets, and they said Benton Harbor's people are tearing up the streets. And it's not Benton Harbor's people, it's a lot of times the utility people come in and do their work, and that service, they getting the benefits of the service that they went in and did the repair. So we should have something in place that compels them to come in and just leave the streets tore up.
Thank you. So this brings us to, see, we already had public comment. We had one lone resident here.
I got one more comment. Can I say one more?
Please.
Out of a show of hands on the committee, how many of you guys read the ordinance, the city income tax ordinance?
Have you?
Yes, I introduced it if you don't remember,
Okay, will you?
but it's not interaction. I just was interested in knowing, because I think if we read this ordinance, we would have a broader understanding. That's all.
Staff comments?
I'm good.
No.
Member Allen?
No, I'm good.
Member Kennard?
No.
Member Meeks?
I'm fine, I kinda got everything off that I wanted to talk about.
Member Tynes?
I just think it's a good thing that, one, that we try to push transparency, that we try to make sure that the voice of residents and citizens are presented, and that we always keep our focus on on the streets in front of their house, on the sidewalks in front of their house, and the alleys in back of their house. So I think we just need to keep focusing on that way and just keep the communications, and then we can continue to move forward.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that I'd like to thank every member for serving on this board. It is voluntary. There's an ad hoc committee. I think that we should keep in mind that this is the only board of the 24 cities that have a city income tax that exists. This is the first ever, so you know we're really pioneering and on a whole nother frontier as it relates to the city income tax. So kudos to you, and hopefully we can have recommendation for the sidewalks with the help of the city engineer that we can send forth to the city commission, and I would like to do so by August. All right, this meeting is adjourned.